Josh Heupel talked about Seth Littrell, who was hired as an analyst at Tennessee. He's not an on-field role, by the way. He was fired by Oklahoma last year, and his offense is blamed for why Brent Venables enters this year on the hot seat at Oklahoma. However, Josh Heupel, this is coach speak, but maybe I'm reading a little bit more into this. Said, quote, for Seth, somebody that I've played with, got great trust in. He's the kind of guy that's going to be clear in his communication to me. All right. I'm going to go ahead and read Seth Littrell's profile, and I'm going to tell you guys something that might be a little bit hot takey, but I think it's possible. Seth Littrell, for those who don't remember, before he was Oklahoma's offensive coordinator and then kind of got canned, he was an offensive analyst for them in 2023. He was head coach at North Texas from 2016 to 2022, went 44-44, did win the division title, did win his division in the Conference USA twice, but never went any further than that. He was fired after a 7-6 season in 2022. And to be fair, they haven't had a winning season since. They went 5-7 and 6-7 after Seth Littrell was fired. Before he was at North Texas, Seth Littrell was the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator at North Carolina under Larry Fedora. He served as offensive coordinator at Indiana in 2012 and 2013. He was an offensive coordinator at Arizona in 2010 and 2011. And before that, he had been a running back at Oklahoma, where he won a national title playing with Josh Heupel, was a grad assistant at Kansas under Mark Mangino, then worked under Texas Tech as the running backs coach from 2005 to 2008. So Heupel and him have the exact same ties because Heupel played under Mike Leach and then Mark Mangino, and Seth Littrell coached and played under both of them too, and then coached under Mark Mangino and Mike Leach, funny enough. And that really stands out. The reason all of this is relevant is Seth Littrell brings the air raid side of Josh Heupel's veer and shoot offense to him. But with Seth Littrell's backstory, and you don't see this a lot with the running backs coach, but I might go here. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Bank on it. Josh Heupel is setting up Seth Littrell to replace Joey Halzle as his offensive coordinator. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, that's right. That was Bank on It by Commercial Bank. I think Seth Littrell is in line to be Tennessee's offensive coordinator. Now, some things that will concern people is, let's be honest, Oklahoma's offense was god-awful last year. I mean, it was god-awful. And yes, an offensive coordinator, even in bad situations, you would expect to be able to have more success than Oklahoma had. I mean, they were 97th in points per game at 24. It was absolutely atrocious. They only averaged 331 yards of total offense. Jackson Arnold ended up transferring. He's now at Auburn for the quote-unquote fresh start, which he talked about yesterday, funny enough. Oklahoma's offense was horrid. It was an embarrassment to watch, okay? I think that at the same time, Seth Littrell has enough experience and enough pizzazz and confidence to add a little more creativity to the offense than Joey Halzle does. Let's point this out, and we've pointed this out a lot. What's the difference between Joey Halzle and Alex Golesh? What's the big difference? It's actually not the offensive scheme. That's Josh Heupel's offensive scheme. What does he want his offensive coordinator to do? To run his scheme, just basically it's a delegated task to run what he wants, but also add in a little pizzazz with some creativity with a few scripted plays here and there. That's what Jeff Lebby was so good at. That's what Alex Golesh was so good at. Joey Halzle knows no creativity whatsoever, doesn't add anything to that. Seth Littrell, given his experience, many years as an offensive coordinator, many years as a head coach, he can script some plays. And because of that, I think Heupel does want him in that role. Now, right now, That's what Seth Littrell is doing as an analyst. He's going to script the plays for Heupel, while Halls is going to be the offensive coordinator. But I think Heupel would love to ease Seth Littrell in. Heupel, at the same time, though, is a very, very decent and respectful person and doesn't want to do to an offensive coordinator what was done to him. And he's also arrogant, so he doesn't want to turn on an offensive coordinator he chose to promote, which he did with Joey Halsey. So how do I think this is going to work out? Here's what Heupel's plan is, and here's what Heupel's hoping. Heupel hopes that with Seth Littrell scripting plays and Joey Halsey just running Heupel's offense, Joey Halsey will be the next Alex Golesh, or look like it, because it'll be his offense coordinator technically, and that'll get him a head coaching job somewhere. Then Heupel can move Seth Littrell into that role without having to fire anybody. That's the ultimate idea behind this, is Heupel wants to be able to move Seth Littrell into his offensive coordinator role without having to fire anybody. I'm going to set that up as a poll question. Who will be Tennessee's number one cornerback in September? 24% say Jermod McCoy despite injury, 20% say Ricky Gibson III, 40% say Colton Hood, and 8% say somebody else. So now we're going to move on. Is Josh Heupel planning to eventually make Seth Littrell OC? Yes or no? You guys vote on that. That's the poll question. I don't see how anybody could say that he's not trying to make Seth Littrell his offensive coordinator. I think it's honestly very obvious that he wants Seth Littrell to be his offensive coordinator. And just to go back to Golesh real quick, Derek is right. Tight end wrinkles were coming from Alex. You're absolutely right. They were. And one of the things about Littrell, by the way, who was also a running backs and tight ends coach, Alex Golesh was a tight ends coach, which is shocking to a lot of people. You expect your offensive coordinators to be quarterbacks coaches, and Jeff Lebby was a successful quarterbacks coach for Josh Heupel. But Jeff Lebby also had experience coaching tight ends getting into the business. Josh Heupel himself was a tight ends coach for a minute. One of the reasons that's kind of intriguing is Halsey just has experience coaching quarterbacks. When you just do that, you just think about calling plays from a quarterback perspective and a scheme from a quarterback perspective, which does fine, by the way, for many offensive coordinators. But it does limit the wrinkles you want to throw into your offense. Coaching other positions helps you a lot with the wrinkles. And Jeff Lebby did coach running backs for a while too. Now, I'm not big on naming running backs, offensive coordinators, running backs coaches. I mean, they don't really, most of running backs coaches just recruit. But in the Art Briles-Vera offense, which Jeff Lebby was running, or was part of, as a running back coach, you are understanding things from a more creativity perspective. And I think that adds a lot to the table. And look, I mean, take some of the best offensive coordinators you could even think of. David Cutcliffe, yes, he was Tennessee's offensive coordinator, and he was very successful, and he had coached quarterbacks for 3 years before moving into that role. However, he had also coached running backs. And actually, for those who don't know, does anybody know the longest tenured role David Cutcliffe had at Tennessee? It was from 1983 to 1988 when he was the tight ends coach. And he was also the special teams coach. So the creativity was a huge part of why David Cutcliffe was so successful. He could see the field from so many different roles. Joey Halsey really and truly only sees it from the quarterback role because that's all he's been. He was a backup quarterback at Oklahoma from 2006 to 2008 when Heupel was the quarterback's coach there. Then he was a quality control coach, seeing things from the quarterback perspective. Then he was a grad assistant. And then his only on-field roles, 2015, quarterbacks coach at Utah State, 2016, quarterbacks coach at Missouri, private sector for 2 years, 2019, quarterbacks coach at UCF, 2020, quarterbacks coach at UCF, 2021 through 2022, quarterbacks coach at Tennessee, and then became the offensive coordinator. He's held no other roles. That's kind of a big deal. That's why I think Heupel brought in Seth Littrell to begin with, and I think he wants to ease Seth Littrell in to be the offensive coordinator.